Have you ever wondered what it's like to be in a Saw movie? You wake up trapped, confused, and someone's idea of justice involves slow, creative pain. In this video, I put together 8 of the worst torture methods ranked from disturbing to what the hell is wrong with humanity. Let's get right into it. 1. The Brazen Bull. You know that feeling when you're stuck in a hot car for 5 minutes? The air turns thick, your clothes cling to your skin, and every breath feels like you're inhaling pure heat. As you try to open the door, it's locked. The windows don't roll down. It's getting hotter and hotter until you realize you're never getting out. Welcome to Brazen Bull, ancient Greece's contribution to barbecue grill. Invented around 560 BCE by a guy named Perillos of Athens, this hollow bronze bull had a trap door for stuffing in victims and a fire pit underneath. As the metal heated, the victim would slowly roast alive. But Perillos took it a step further. He installed an acoustic system that converted screams into bull-like sounds and even designed it so steam would escape from the bull's nose. But here's where the karma gods stepped in. As Perillos proudly showed off his creation to the tyrant Phalaris, the ruler had an idea. Why not give us a live demo? Before Perillos could refuse, he was shoved inside. Phalaris locked the door and lit the fire, and let Perillos experience his own nightmare firsthand. And the irony doesn't stop there. Legend says that years later, the tables turned. Phalaris found himself inside the very bull he once used to terrorize others. Roasting alive is a nasty way to go, but it's nowhere near as painful as what's to come. 2. Lingchi, China. Ever winced at a paper cut? A bright, sharp, burning sting, like someone dipped a tiny sword in lemon juice and dragged it across your finger. Now imagine 1,000 of them, except deeper, bloodier, and in public. Lingchi, or death by 1,000 cuts, a punishment so brutal it was only reserved for the worst criminals. Practiced from around 900 CE until 1905, the process was exactly what it sounds like. The executioner would methodically slice off bits of flesh, starting with non-vital areas. A skilled executioner could keep a person alive through hundreds of cuts over several days. One of the most infamous cases? In 1251, Yu Hongfu endured over 3,000 cuts before death finally put him out of his misery. This was not just physical torture in Chinese culture. Having an intact body was essential for the afterlife, so Lingchi was a 2-for-1 special, destroying both body and soul. When Western photographers captured images of Lingchi in the late 19th century, the world recoiled in horror. The photos spread like wildfire, and within years, China had no choice but to ban the practice in 1905. But as bad as that sounds, at least the torturers were doing the work themselves. Our next punishment outsourced the dirty work to some unexpected little helpers. 3. Scaphism, Persia. If you thought bugs were annoying at your summer picnic, wait till you hear about how the ancient Persians turned them into executioners. Scaphism, also known as the boats, was a slow, nightmare-fueled execution. The victim was stripped naked and sandwiched between 2 hollowed-out wooden boats, with only their head, hands, and feet sticking out. Then came the real horror. The victim was force-fed a grotesque cocktail of milk and honey until they developed explosive diarrhea. Their exposed body parts were then slathered in honey before they were left floating in a stagnant pond. Flies would then swarm, lay eggs, and eventually maggots would hatch and begin eating the victim alive from the inside out. The most famous victim, Mithridates, reportedly survived for 17 days before death finally gave him peace. And if there's one thing we've learned so far, it's that ancient civilizations were incredibly creative when it came to making people suffer. While the Persians were letting nature do their dirty work, medieval Europeans decided to add some mechanical engineering to the torture game. 4. The breaking wheel, France. The victim would be spread-eagled on the massive wooden wheel, while the executioner played a twisted game of connect the dots. Using an iron hammer, they methodically break each bone in the body. Once every bone was shattered, their mangled body would be twisted and woven through the wheel's spokes. Then they'd be hoisted up for the crowd to admire. The most notorious case was Robert Francois Damien in 1757, who barely scratched King Louis XV with a knife. His punishment? First, his limbs were shattered on the wheel. Then, he was drawn and quartered by horses. And finally, they burned him at the stake. Even Voltaire, who'd seen gruesome things in his time, thought this was overkill. The breaking wheel was finally abolished during the French Revolution, which says a lot considering those guys were pretty fond of the guillotine. The breaking wheel proved that with a little imagination, a simple wheel can go a long way. But while Europeans were breaking bones in town squares, Vikings took brutality to a whole new level. 5. The Blood Eagle. Vikings. When you think of Vikings, what comes to mind? Towering axe-wielding warriors raiding villages and striking fear into their enemies? Merciless fighters who lived for battle? Well, you'd be right. And if you ever wronged a Viking, they had a special way of making sure you really regretted it. This brutal execution involves slicing open the victim's back, snapping the ribs away from the spine, and pulling out the lungs, spreading them over the shoulders like a grotesque pair of wings. The worst part is the victim would supposedly remain alive during this process, their lungs still moving as they struggled to breathe. According to the sagas, this was reserved for enemies who had killed someone's father. Most famously, King Ella of Northumbria allegedly got the blood eagle treatment from Ragnar Lothbrok's sons. Historians debate whether this actually happened or was just Viking fake news designed to scare their enemies. Either way, it worked. Over 1,000 years later, we're still talking about it. Sometimes a terrifying reputation is deadlier than reality. Kind of like those "my dad will beat up your dad" threats from 3rd grade. And speaking of psychological terror, sometimes the scariest torture doesn't come from metal contraptions. It grows straight out of the ground. 6. Bamboo torture. Japan. During World War II, Japanese soldiers reportedly turned the world's fastest growing plant into a torture device. The method was simple yet horrifying. A prisoner would be tied down over bamboo shoots. Since bamboo can grow up to 3 feet per day, it would slowly pierce through a victim's body over several days. The bamboo would gradually grow through the victim, causing excruciating pain as it tore through flesh and organs. The psychological impact was just as brutal. Victims watched the bamboo inch taller and taller, knowing exactly what was coming, but powerless to stop it. This was the torture equivalent of a Windows update. Slow, painful, and completely out of your control. If you think that's disturbing, wait until you see how medieval Europeans made use of common household pests. 7. Rat torture. Medieval Europe. The method was simple. Place a rat on the victim's body, usually the stomach, and cover it with a metal container. Heat the container, and the rat, desperate to escape, had only one way out: straight through the victim's body. The victim would feel every bite and tear as the rat burrowed deeper, eventually dying from blood loss, shock, or infection. During the 16th century Dutch Revolution, both sides accused each other of using this method, basically making war crimes a deadly game of "he started it." Seeing a rat across the subway platform is terrifying enough. Now imagine one chewing its way through you. Next time you complain about your hamster's smelly cage, be glad it's not trying to escape through your rib cage. But wait, even rats seem merciful compared to our next punishment, which turned execution into a multi-step performance art. 8. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. England. From 1352 to 1870, England had a punishment for high treason. They called it being hanged, drawn, and quartered. The original 3-step program where the only thing you lose is everything. Step 1. Drawn. As in dragged through the streets on a wooden frame while crowds hurled insults and garbage. Think Twitter cancel culture, except with real garbage and way fewer apologies. Step 2. A short drop hanging, just enough to cause pain but not break the neck. The victim would be cut down still conscious, like a bungee jump where the cord really lets you down. Step 3. The executioner would cut open the victim's abdomen and remove their organs while they were still alive, burning them right in front of their eyes. Then, for the grand finale, the body was divided into 4 parts, usually by tying each limb to a different horse and sending them off in opposite directions. The severed head and body parts were displayed around the city as a warning, medieval England's version of a PSA. Guy Fawkes, who tried and failed to blow up Parliament in 1605, took one last W by jumping from the scaffold and breaking his neck, dodging the worst of it. Smart move, Guy. This punishment wasn't just about pain. It was about erasing your identity. No proper burial meant no proper afterlife, according to beliefs at the time. It was medieval deleting your account, except you also lost your soul and your limbs. And that's a wrap on today's Nightmare Fuel. Which one scarred you the most? Let us know in the comments. Oh yeah, and this is my first video, so subscribe for more.